All right, welcome to a new episode of Opening Bid. I'm Yahoo Finance's executive editor, Brian Sozzi. Like I always say, this is the podcast that will make you a better investor and a better leader. Really excited for our next guest here. Really fascinating business. Gulnar Khosrowshahi, CEO and founder of Reservoir Media. Good to see you.
Nice to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Normally, I would just dive right into certain questions on the business, but I just level set. Tell me about your business. What do you work on at Reservoir, and where have you taken the business?
Well, no day is the same, so then that keeps things entertaining. We are a music publisher, we are a record label, we are a management company, so we do many different things across the music business, but the best way to summarize that is that we are rights holders and rights managers who are constantly looking not just to protect that IP, but also to license that IP. So if we just look at boiling it down to how do we collect revenue, we collect revenue by licensing that IP every single day and making sure that those rights are protected and that we're selling those rights at the right price and keeping the rights of our clients protected.
How did you get into this?
I'm a classically trained pianist by background,
cool.
And have spent many, many years at the piano. From there, I went on to work on the buy side of music licensing in advertising and marketing, and that really taught me how to buy music, license music, and then I got interested in how people were managing rights in entertainment generally. And I did a lot of due diligence around music, as well as book publishing, as well as film and TV rights holders, and really focused on music because, first of all, I'm predisposed to that area. But there seemed to be a lot of history and education existing around how people were financing music, cash flows, and how people were monetizing those rights. And I like the fact that I didn't need to educate a marketplace about that. Mm-hmm. So we didn't really reinvent the wheel, but we really set out to do things better than the people were doing it.
Who is in your catalog?
I mean, this is like asking me to choose between my children, who I tell you.
I didn't ask you for favorite. I said just two, because
even
I
the
read
ones I mentioned.
I read the annual report. Like, it's a lot of people that I think folks would know.
Yes, I mean, we represent Joni Mitchell, we represent Katie Lang, we represent Snoop. We bought a record label called Tommy Boy, so along with that came a lot of rights with De La Soul. It's a very, very diverse group of artists and songwriters and music that dates back over 100 years. And that's always been the objective, to take this portfolio approach to building the catalog and ensuring that we have exposure to all kinds of music, and that we've always been interested in representing all kinds of music.
John Denver too?
John Denver too.
Wow, that is.
See, then I didn't mention him. And,
that's cool.
John Denver too.
So how do you monetize all of these amazing artists?
Well, that is essentially how the music industry operates, is that as an administrator of these rights, we are licensing that IP for usage, whether it be in films, video games, television shows. You still need to license to stream through the DSPs. You still need a license to issue vinyl, et cetera. So these are all license-driven uses of the IP that are then monetized. And we cover all of that different licensing for our clients. And the capacity to which we cover them depends on where our rights are, whether we're their label, whether we're their publisher, et cetera. So it is nuanced that way, and we execute within the parameters of our rights.
One deal that you recently did I'm like, wow, that is so clever, and I didn't realize you can do that. The voice of the Lion King.
Yes.
How does something like that even...
The voice and the spirit.
How does that even come about?
So we have a long-standing relationship with Lebo Meraki. His stage name is Lebo M. And that is through our existing relationship, which is probably coming up to about a decade-long relationship with Hans Zimmer and Remote Control Productions. And so we've always had an interest in The Lion King and that music. And so really it was just an existing relationship that evolved with Lebo and concluded in the transaction we announced last year. So we essentially now have a parallel interest to what we had before in that music. It was very well timed because Mufasa was released in December, and we've seen Lion King, the original, as well as all of the adjacent Lion King content just thrive.
So every time he kicks off that song, you get a piece. Is that how this works? You get a piece. That's how it works.
Essentially, that is how to look at it. Is that every time something is licensed like that, we are earning revenue.
I mean,
and every time
that's so
is
clever.
a new.
It's just a clever.
Lebo has announced on April 18th a launch tour in Cape Town that will really. It'll be the sort of concert announcement of Lebo M and the voice and the spirit of the Lion King, and Hans is joining him for that.
That's amazing. So how does, I guess, the downloading of music, we've seen the streaming platforms raise prices. Like, how does it influence your business?
It's good for us. Just if you look at it simplistically, there is a bucket that is essentially the sum of all of the subscription revenue from which we are getting paid. So raising the prices just increases the size of that pool. And I think that psychologically and ethically, it also underscores the value of music. We used to operate, and when we got into this business, during a time when there was some prevailing thought through a certain subset of just demographic that believed we shouldn't even be paying for music.
I remember Napster and
exactly.
when I started downloading music.
People didn't feel that they should be paying for music. That, thankfully, didn't take hold, and we are where we are here. And I still believe that there is room with the consumer on the value of music, and so that creates room on the elasticity of that pricing. But we've seen, at least over the course of the past 2 years, a pretty solid cadence of price increases across the DSPs, the same way that you are paying more for any of your film content. The difference being you may maintain 3 different visual providers of that content, but you only need to maintain 1 for music. So I think we have that going for us.
Yeah, one of the recent transactions I've seen, like catalog sales, may have been Bruce Springsteen a couple years ago, $550 million sale. Like, what do you think about some of the valuations these catalogs are fetching?
Again, it's good for us. People being interested in music and valuing music makes it a more competitive environment insofar as how we do M&A, but it also increases the value of our catalog.
Sure.
We've always been in a competitive environment. Competition doesn't scare me. And private equity's always been interested in this area.
BlackRock?
All of them, BlackRock, Blackstone, KKR, you name it. Everybody's been in this area. There's a certain attraction to the cash flow, the nature of these cash flows, the predictability of these cash flows, the long-term value, the terminal value. So those characteristics all are there. Higher valuations is just better for the business. I don't mind competing.
Mm-hmm. Do you think for top artists, selling their catalogs is where it all ends up over the next few decades?
I think so. I mean, this is personal. People are estate planning. People are reaching a certain age. I mean, I think everybody's motivation, particularly when you're looking at a singular artist sale versus a catalog sale, or versus a diversified catalog sale. It's personal. And I think that within an age range of where these artists are, yes, that is the logical conclusion. It's much easier to divvy up $1 than it is to divvy up a copyright.
I guess, I never thought about that. It is, for the artist, it is portfolio diversification.
Yes, very much so.
How did you find out or how did you land on John Denver? Out of all the folks, how do you know, you know what, that's going to bring me some good cash flow and returns over the next many years? Like, how'd you identify that?
So the John Denver catalog came to us through a diversified catalog, and it was the FS Media collection of music, which I am going to say we concluded that transaction sometime around 2014. I could be 1 or 2 years off. And in that catalog was not just John Denver, but was also Sheryl Crow, Evanescence, the estate of Billy Strayhorn. So very, very diverse.
Big Evanescence fan here.
Yes, and
definitely.
that part of the catalog continues to have this staying power, and the music means something to a lot of people. The same thing with the John Denver catalog. So that's how it came about. We were particularly interested in that deal because of the diversity of the music that was in there, and with one transaction we could add that caliber of artist. So it wasn't actually a specific deal with the Denver estate.
All right, hang with us. We're going to be right back on Open Bid. We're going to go off for a quick break. All right, welcome back to Opening Bid. Having a fun chat here with Golnar Khosrowshahi, CEO and founder of Reservoir Media. I'm like legitimately fascinated by your business. It's one of the more interesting businesses we've had the chance to talk about here on Opening Bid. So what do you think? You know, there was just recently, and I'm going to pronounce her name wrong. My producer's going to laugh at me in my ear. Chaperone?
Yeah.
Did I get it right? Because full disclosure, I never heard of her before she, spoke out on what artists are making. Mm-hmm. Where do you stand on that? Should artists be paid a certain amount earlier in their career, or are they being paid enough?
So I don't know the specifics of her deal, and I was at the Grammys and I listened to that. I will say generally that the livelihood of artists and songwriters is very, very important to us. We've done a number of things to ensure that, and we'll continue to advocate for artists and for songwriters. I think one of the contentions specific to what she was talking about was healthcare. That's one of the things that she brought up. Again, I'm not going to speak to that subject specifically, but the well-being of the artist is very, very important. We are not a passive representative. We don't passively represent artists and writers. We have a platform, we look out for their well-being, we do everything that we can to ensure that, and each company is different insofar as how they're dealing with that. I think that artists being vocal and because they have a platform is important. So
you think we'll hear more of that? And it sounds more like an industry thing.
It is, and we've been hearing a lot about it, whether it's on the artist side or on the songwriter side, and it continues to be debate. I mean, think about it this way, these people don't have a full-time job with a company that provides them with benefits, the way you and I think about benefits. And so, again, we do what we can to ensure their livelihood within our walls, and hopefully other people can do that too.
On the topic of music creation, I was at an event 2 years ago, and I think it was a Google event, and Wyclef Jean came out, pulls out a guitar, but proceeds to create a song with AI, and this was 2 years ago.
Okay.
And I left there thinking, oh, wow, I'm obviously not creating music, but it will have a profound impact on how music is created. I mean, would you agree with that?
I think it's already having a profound impact. I think, if you think about different aspects of the music industry, one tranche of the business is production music. Music that is commodity music. It's interstitial music. It's used for intros and outros, and it's not necessarily known. You don't recognize it. That can all be automated. We're not in that business, but that's certainly a part of the business that is being dramatically impacted by AI. You raise an interesting example because it's the producer and the writer and the creator combined with AI that is going to create a better output. But I don't see a scenario where a song like Take Me Home, Country Roads is going to have its listenership dwindle because it's being replaced by AI music to which we have no connection either to the artist or the writer or the experience.
That's what I want. I'm glad you brought that up, because the way I see it, does AI mean we don't create classics anymore? Like those songs, we were talking before camera, I went to a Foreigner concert.
Right.
And these guys are just belting out these tunes that I remember singing in bars in college. Like, they last with you for the rest of your life. But if we have these computers creating this music, maybe we get music that we don't feel emotionally connected with.
And who's listening to that music? We're listening to the music that we choose to listen to because we have an emotional relationship with the music, whether it's because you saw them at Jones Beach and you recall the experience you had when you were younger, or we just remember the point we were in our lives, and we just started college, and the music is reminiscent of that point. That emotional connection to the music is important. The DSPs can be flooded with this AI-generated music, but I'd like to see what the listenership numbers are. If it's out there, but nobody's listening to it. What's its future?
Do you think the artist gets replaced?
No. I think that now more than ever, that idolatry's always been there, but people's relationships with the artist and the experience with the artist is closer and more important than ever. A couple of things about that. First of all, the accessibility that social media has created for people to actually connect with artists has been incredible. But second, a lot of the companies that are in music wouldn't actually be pursuing these super fan type products, whatever those may be, if they didn't recognize the size of the market that's accessible because of the importance of the artist. So you see Spotify thinking about essentially launching a subscription product potentially in the fall that is super fan based. It's going to be more expensive than the current subscription product, but it's based on the fact that people want more of the artist, want to be closer, want to have a more artist-driven experience.
So what would I get for a super fan? Is it
that remains to be seen.
Yeah.
So we don't know yet what.
I mean, I'm willing to pay more. Just give me something.
Well, exactly, and apparently you're going to get that something beyond just what is a better experience as interpreted by an audiophile.
I turn on the radio now, and a lot of the songs just sound
terrestrial radio.
I have satellite in my car.
Okay.
But every song kind of sounds the same. Why is this happening? And then two, what makes a good song today? What makes a hit?
So part of it is just trend, right? Part of it is what is appealing, what are people listening to. Our most recent hit of the year was a song called Espresso by Sabrina Carpenter, written by our writer Steph Jones, co-written by our writer Steph Jones.
I'm writing that down.
What makes a hit today? I don't think that it's different than it ever used to be. It's catchy, it is representative of a time, it is, there are certain things that have changed. You need to engage the listener much earlier on in the song now than you used to.
No one thinks beyond, 20 seconds anymore? If not, maybe that's too long too.
It's important that, especially when music is streamed, it's important that the whole song is listened to, or as much of the song as possible is listened to. So there's a little bit of that change that has happened. But a great song is still driven by the lyrics and the melody and that appeal. And yes, trend certainly has something to do with it.
How do you see, given everything we've talked about here, how do you see your business changing over the next couple of years?
I think that we are going to have a lot better, more dynamic and applicable AI-based platforms to help us run our business. And that's nothing that our clients would really ever see, but it's about tracking and managing our data. That's our most important asset, the metadata around the music, but also all of the royalty data. It's millions and millions of lines. So we'll be a lot better at doing that. So I really see the back end and the B2B side of our business changing. I think that I think that these superfan products will take off, and it'll be a really good test and just information collection opportunity to understand, does this superfan market have a future? Because that's going to impact what the live experience is going to be like and how people can take advantage of that. Were you to ask me this a few years ago when everybody was only talking about NFTs, maybe I would have talked about NFTs. So I don't know, hopefully this...
what were those? That's old news. It's old news.
Hopefully the superfan discussion won't turn into that in a few years.
In the last few minutes of the podcast, we always love to get hot takes from our guests, but I'm going to frame this one a little differently. Where have you drawn inspiration from as you've, grown your business? Maybe you can compact your leadership journey in about 2.5 minutes.
I draw inspiration from a lot of different things. I draw inspiration from completely unrelated business analysis, from my parents, my family, my children particularly. But also, I would say most of my inspiration comes from my colleagues, my team, and my clients. And then that is all wrapped in the musical score, which is really what gets us up and going to work every single day, because every single day there's new music. Every single day there's old music that's being used in new music. And that's pretty inspiring, just to be a part of that.
Do you have a favorite musician?
Do I have a favorite musician? I mean, every day it's different. As I told you, this weekend I get to see Diana Ross, Hilary Hahn with the New York Phil, and our client Emily Sandé. So I can't name one.
Lastly too, you draw inspiration, I think, from your dad.
I do.
Right, your dad is a well-known business person. Right? What have you learned from him?
Everything. He's my first call every morning, and I have learned from him, I think, the most important business lesson is the value of the team that you put together, and he has put together a team that are still with him decades later.
Well, it's so good to finally meet you. Again, fascinated by your business. Looking forward to staying in touch too.
Thank you.
Golnar Khosrowshahi, CEO and founder of Reservoir Media. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you so much for having me.
I appreciate it. All right, continue to hit us with all those likes on the podcast platforms, and I try to listen and reply to all your comments. I appreciate the feedback. And in case I know this question is coming, my favorite band is Bush. I'm over 40 years old, a grunge rock scene, just my favorite band. Maybe Golnar will add it to the portfolio at some point. Don't know where it exists now. Nonetheless, we'll talk to you soon.